Join us now to discuss this. We'll talk about this. Two former members of Congress, Democrat Donna Edwards. She's also an NBC News political analyst, and she's once again running for her old congressional seat. And I guess if you do that after you leave office, it's fine. But it's a good reason to do it, I think. And Republican former White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, he's the founder of Exegesis Capital and the co-chair of Acumen Consulting. Mick, in the past, you've said you immediately put things at an arm's length, sort of a blind trust. That's what needs to be done, at the least.
That wasn't really blind trust. Yeah, good morning. Thanks again for having me. Hello to Donna. Good luck in her race. We weren't required when we were in Congress. I was in Congress before I was in the White House, and we could hold anything, and I didn't hold any equities there. Once you got over to the administration and you were in the cabinet, and we're learning this now about the guy that runs the science and technology place, when you're at cabinet level, you are required to divest yourself of all your equities, and you get to do so tax-free. So there's all sorts of different rules for different parts of the government. One of the things I happen to agree with Nancy Pelosi on, as she talks about the proposed bill moving forward, is that it should apply across all the branches of government. You've got a problem with the Fed. You've certainly got issues with judges all over the country. So, yeah, I think it's going to be very complicated to put in place, but it does bear looking at real closely.
This is, Congresswoman, this is bipartisan, at least.
Well, I think that's true. I mean, look, I'm a little out of my league. I think when the ratings came out, I was always the least wealthy member of Congress. But I do think that for appearance's sake, I mean, we want to make sure that the public has confidence that we're doing our public service in a way that is not influencing our own pocketbooks. And so I think this doesn't mostly apply to most members of Congress, but it's probably prudent to establish some rules. I heard the discussion about an arm's length kind of blind trust, or other rules that have thresholds for the amount of investments that one can have in individual stocks. I think that there are ways to put in place some guardrails, but I think you go a long way when you start applying this to extended family members, especially, I mean, spouses. What happens when you marry a spouse who's an investment broker? Does that mean that he has to then, or she has to divest everything? I think we need to be careful about this and not just apply a rule because it affects a handful of people, or 20 members of Congress, and then apply that across all branches of government.
Yeah, and Mick, there's spouses, there's offspring, your children, and there's things that may not even be publicly traded that you can do. I don't know. We've seen some good examples of that. Also, shouldn't it be the spirit of the law? People know what is right and what is wrong. You're never going to get it in the letter of the law. You're never going to get it to cover all aspects of conflicts. So, but I don't think we can count on politicians to act on just the spirit of the law, though.
Well, you can, but you're never going to legislate, everything, right? You're certainly not going to legislate morality. Keep in mind, insider trading has been illegal since before the Stock Act, back when they did that 60 Minutes piece on Nancy Pelosi. I remember, and Donna was in Congress with me at the same time. The next Monday, after that 60 Minutes show ran accusing her of insider trading, we got a memo that says very clearly insider trading is against the law, and that was before the Stock Act. So a lot of this is going to be window dressing, but you guys get into a lot of the really good details. It sounds easy to do, and it's not. What about crypto? I've been on this show talking about crypto for 10 years. When I founded the caucus, it was $200 a coin. I didn't buy any because I thought it'd be a conflict, but I could have. And crypto, I don't think, is addressed in one of the proposed bills, or at least in Warren's bill. So listen, these things are great. People love it. They love to pat themselves in the back and say, look, we're doing something right. But is it going to really change activity at the end of the day? Probably not. The folks who are going to break the law anyway are going to figure out a way to break the law. Insider trading continues to be against the law. So now you're looking maybe just doing it in mutual funds instead of in equities. Who knows? But I think it's going to pass. It should pass. And we'll make the best of it as we can.